so first of all, I have to thank you all for choosing to either wait the traffic out or not be in traffic here. That is a cray-mazing thing. This slide is really just for Chris Morris. He wanted me to put... Yes, I'm doing so well. All right. So this talk is called Developers Are From Mars, Developers Are From Venus, and that's kind of a play on a self-help book that was available in the 90s when I worked at a Barnes & Noble. The idea of the book was that the book was Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, and the idea was that men and women are very different, think different, etc. So you can better understand your spouse or your girlfriend or whatever, or your husband or whatever, your partner, by understanding how they're different. And that might be a whole bunch of schlock, but the underlying notion that we're all different and that there are ways we can think about each other to better get along and work together, I think is a really rad idea. So this talk is kind of a journal of me diagnosing myself as a jerk and trying to troubleshoot that code out of my manner. I had realized several years ago that a lot of the problems I was facing as a developer were social problems and not technical problems. Working with some people and some developers just wasn't very easy or possible for me because of personality conflicts or disagreements or whatever. And I made it, I was lucky for the first several years of my career to work with people who had the sympathy or empathy to know how to work with me as a wily young upstart. But eventually, that's not going to carry me through my whole career. So I realized I had to level up my people skills. But the tricky part is there's no README for people, and there's certainly no manual page. So all of this, I feel like I had to reverse engineer it myself. Luckily, there's a lot of books and non-schlocky self-help stuff out there, and I've tried to collect the things I figured out as I go. I blog about it a bit, I tweet about it, and here I am presenting about it. So as I grew into a elder, aged developer, very elder, as you can see, I reached a point where I said I was limited by who I could interact with and the kinds of situations I could successfully negotiate. So I figured out basically I could accomplish very little on my own, so I better get this teamwork and understanding people stuff together, or else I was just going to be stuck in a corner doing uninteresting things. So once upon a time, I realized that everyone is different. Not everyone is like me, for better or for worse. And so I have to figure out how, when I meet someone or when I'm interacting with someone, working with someone, I have to figure out what's going on in their head and how can I better communicate with and engage with that thing. So I started debugging myself and reverse engineering those I work with because I can see what's going on in my head, but I don't know what's going on in their head, so it's a black box situation. And I tried to learn how to work with teams and communities that I'm a part of, because every team and community is a little different, just like every person is a little different. So the headline things here are to know people in general, know yourself and know what your tendencies are, and practice empathy. So the way I want to get started with this is knowing people. I like to, we all like to put things into their places, put things into their buckets or their pigeonholes or whatever. And so I have developed some caricatures, some personality types of developers, and this helps me get a rough feeling of what is motivating, what is important to someone I might be working with in a team or a community. These are absolutely not science. These are just my observations. One or more of these few caricatures may be you, and one or more of them may be on your team or people you see at Ruby group meetings, conferences, on the internet, etc. So the useful thing here is to recognize each character type, and then how can I work most effectively with that character type. So the first character type that I ever realized, like, oh, this person is different from me, were grinders. Grinders are people who just hack out a bunch of code really quick, who get features done really snappy, who are pushing to production rapidly, iterating quickly. They're product and feature obsessed. All they want to do is get new stuff out, experiment with it, see if it works. And they're very cutthroat in their methods for getting software into production. A grinder that I worked with a few jobs ago, he would push, every 30 seconds, and sometimes it wouldn't even be syntactically valid Ruby. He would just type some stuff in, be like, yeah, I think this works, deploy it, look on the server, and be like, oh, this page blew up, and now people on my Twitter are being like, hey, why is this thing not working? And then he would make a fix and immediately deploy it, and that worked fine because our deploy only took like 30 seconds. And he didn't write any unit tests. And so to me, this guy was terrifying, just absolutely like, how is this actually working? But the answer is he was obsessed with getting that feedback and moving quickly. So he made mistakes, and he moved quickly to fix them. And he was super iterative. Sometimes grinders can be stormy, and that's kind of a way of saying aggressive, or not aggressive like a lion, but not as thinky as I am, for instance. So the core question for me as a more contemplative sort of developer, a little bit of a perfectionist, the key question for me when I'm working with a grinder is, how can I explain to them why what I want to do is better than their current approach? How can I sell this guy on TDD? Or how can I sell this person on doing A/B tests, something like that. To help them, so I can help them do a better job as the person who's enthusiastic about languages and design and architect by saying, hey, if you change from what you're doing from just trying whatever you think might work to doing TDD, then you get a quicker feedback loop because it's running on your machine and you don't have to deploy. Or I can say, hey, if you don't just cram a bunch of code into an action, and if you put it in this method, then later you can reuse it, or it'll be easier to change so that you can go faster again. And sometimes they'll say, Adam, that doesn't make any sense. I don't understand how I could write more code to go faster. And so there's a feedback loop there where you have to say, oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Let me think about that. And you come back and say, oh, well, it's because later you're not going to break the site like you did. And you fixed it, and that's great, but we can do better. So I have to listen and act if they tell me my software design isn't helping them out. So there can be a really nice feedback loop between grinders and another personality type coming up that I like to call geniuses, just for the letter symmetry. So tour guides are another really awesome kind of developer. These are the people that know the code and the domain in and out. If you're working on what we've appropriated this word legacy systems, someone who really knows a legacy system is a tour guide. They can ask you can ask them, why is the code this way? And they can give you a really good answer. You can say, why do we do it this way? And they can be like, oh, well, one day Bob, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they know the code and domain extremely well, and so they're super useful when you're like, what's going on here? And they can work across the complexity of a system. If you have like a service-oriented system, they were probably around when it wasn't a service-oriented system or when it was a smaller system, or they just know all the pieces well enough that they can say, okay, well, if you want to add a new authorization type, you need to make a change in system A, B, and service C. So they're super valuable to organizations because they can work on anything, and so they're often heavily guarded people who, like, if you say, I want this tour guide on my team, then you're going to have to go to you're going to have to really maybe fight with someone to get that person on your team. But they're super useful. Sometimes tour guides are also not so much about your code, the specific project you're on, or the domain, but they are super intensely useful when you need to know specialized things about kernels or compilers or your programming language stack, distributed systems, cryptography, info security. There's all sorts of tour guides out there in the world. The thing that I've found that makes working with tour guides even better than so like I said, they're often heavily guarded individuals who only have to work on the most critical projects because that's what the organization thinks is best. But what's really best is for them to split their time teaching all of this tour information that they already know to other developers. So really a 50-50 split between the critical things and helping everyone else know the system is the best way to work with tour guides. Always, if you have to ask a question of a tour guide, make sure you're always like writing it down and figuring out how to spread that information outside of their head. Okay, so geniuses are kind of the complementary, the yin to the grinder's yang. These are people who are thinkers and sometimes worriers. Some grinders who don't like geniuses, we'll call them architecture astronauts. Sometimes I personally, especially, suffer from second system syndrome. So I see an existing system and the temptation is to be like, wipe the slate clean, we can do it all perfectly again, which is never, ever true. But there's a big focus on quality and experimentation. Geniuses know all the patterns, know the design literature, or know the programming language literature, or distributed systems literature, et cetera. They really want to focus on building small, correct, really great systems that they're extremely proud of. And they want to experiment with different things, with different databases, different languages, different libraries, et cetera. They're always looking to hone their craft. These are the people who often the people who practice koans at home. Like I said, these people can become architecture astronauts and fall prone to the big rewrite or second system syndromes. So the way to work with geniuses, especially if you feel like you're a fast iterative grinder type, is to help them figure out how we can iterate towards that better vision that exists in their head. You can't just hit stop on moving the product or getting features and getting features done, fixing bugs, et cetera. But you can say, okay, we want to get from A to B, and there's 10 steps in between, and if we do only 4 of them, we're awesome, and if we do 10, then we're at amazing. So helping them figure out how to iterate, helping me how to figure out iterate, and divide problems up is super useful. T-shaped people, like generalists, people who are broadly generalized and deeply specialized are another kind of developer you'll come upon. They're focused on one area of skill development. So if you think of all the things you need to know in order to program computers as a spectrum, and different and there's skills all along. So there's like touch typing, using Git, knowing how Ruby works, knowing how Rails works, design, unit testing, deployment, databases, etc. Some people will specialize like deeply in Ruby. They're Evan Phoenix. They know how to write a Ruby, or they are the Sinatra team. They know how to do a web framework. So that's a kind of T-shaped person. And they might be mediocre in other skills. You might, if you have the wrong conversation with a T-shaped person in an area not of their specialty, they might seem like they're really mediocre developers or barely computer literate. They might not be able to touch type. They might suck at text editing or something like that. But there's one skill that they're really good at. And if they choose the right skill to specialize at, then they're amazing to work with because there's just a ton of things you can learn from them. I work with an individual who is deeply specialized in design. So at first I was like, oh, I'm not sure if he really understands Rails that well. But it doesn't kind of matter because he's really good at the solid principles. So I can learn about solid from him and learn about teaching him, oh, well, here's how solid does or doesn't apply to action controller or something like that. So to work with them, you want to listen patiently to whatever they're focused in. If you can learn about Git from them or compilers or whatever, you want to focus in on that when they're talking about that, when the problem area is that. And then when areas where they're not so strong, you just, that's a place to practice empathy, to just say, oh, hey, yeah, here's how you do that. So there's a nice give and take that can occur there. So the fun leader is the last sort of character that I've come across. This is someone with amazing technical chops plus people skills. Someone who's really good at listening to people, hearing two opposing sides, and finding some middle ground so that we can start getting stuff done. They're able to get dogmatic and opinionated people together and bridge that gap so that everyone can get together and get something done, make an awesome thing. They can't be called on constantly. There's a temptation to be like, oh, John can fix any kind of technical problem or people problem. These two groups don't agree. We need to get John in between them and then have him fix that situation. And then, oh no, now there's this other situation. We have to have our fun leader fix that too. They need time, cool down time, to do awesome technical things because you brought them on because they're also awesome at technical stuff. And if you need to lean on them constantly, then honestly, your team and culture is just broken. And you need to fix it higher up in the management and leadership chain than in having someone at the development and technical lead level having to always fix these gaps in your team. So those folks are awesome. So the other thing that you have to do, that I found I had to do, besides recognizing these kinds of people, is to learn about myself and learn about how to think about other people. So I had to realize my own tendencies. There are words or attitudes that put me off and put me in a bad defensive place or paint me into a corner. So I had to realize what those things are and be able to step back and say, okay, this thing is happening. I need to be very tactical, consider my words, not get too amped up about this. Figure out what seems natural to me, what is difficult to me. What is intimidating to me. Like doing a sales negotiation is very intimidating to me and completely unnatural, that kind of social situation. So I want to either kindly get out of that situation, delegate it to someone else, or figure out a amiable way to do this without leveraging weird inequalities. And I had to learn how to have patience with the tendencies of others. Some people are annoying to me. And so I have to be like, okay, this guy is telling his knock-knock jokes. I'll let him tell us 3 knock-knock jokes, and then I'll just think about football for a minute or two. And then we can go back to having a cool conversation. Or I might just need to know to breathe deeply and step back and say, okay, this conversation isn't going the way I want it to. I'm, pulling all of my people tricks out of my bag of tricks. It's not working. I should probably just figure out how to step back and find some way out of this conversation where I don't regret it later, where I don't look back and say, man, I wish I had done that better later. So just knowing how to step back, and when I feel exhausted from dealing with some kind of team or person situation, knowing how to recharge my batteries. So for me, going running, going to work out, going to improv comedy classes, all of that helps me recharge my batteries for people situations at work where sometimes they're my friend. Sometimes I've chosen to hang out with these people, and sometimes I haven't chosen to work closely with these people. Knowing personality types, the straight old conventional Myers-Briggs personality type tests, where it tells you if you're an introvert or an extrovert, thinking, perceiving, feeling, judging, and there's another one. Knowing all that stuff, knowing approximately where you land, it sets up, like the Myers-Briggs sets up like 8 personality qualities, and you can be anywhere on a spectrum on the 4 qualities. And it's not a constant. You're not like always an introvert or always an extrovert. So really it's more useful to know which way you trend. I trend extrovert but have introverted moments, so that's useful to know. And then it's useful for me to know, I feel like I just recently became able to identify when I'm annoying an introvert and when I should just shut up and bring this conversation to a close so they can go recharge and not be exhausted by me. And outside of Myers-Briggs, I've noticed like there are brash talkers. People like to talk pointedly and bluntly, and there are kind talkers. I'm a kind talker. If I can sugarcoat something, I will try and sugarcoat it because I don't like to argue vehemently. Debating is okay. Arguing is not much fun. But some people, another thing, some people like angry rants. Some people love to hear someone yell about politics or sports teams or active record or whatever. I don't. That's just the way, not everyone is like me. That's okay. And then realizing, like I said, with introverts and extroverts, sometimes I have to realize when my personality type is in conflict with the other person. An introvert probably just wants me to tell them what I need to tell them, and then and then that's it. Whereas if I'm talking with an extrovert, we can joke around and riff a bit, and it's fun. But I don't want to force an introvert to riff around with me because that's just taking from their batteries. So a lot of this is leading into empathy, like feeling for the other person, understanding the other side's wants and needs, what the pressures are on them, what their goals are, what the norms, like the social norms that they're trying to play to are, whether they need to defend their ego or not. Knowing all of these things is really useful, especially online when there's like something like Twitter where all sorts of context is stripped away. So trying to figure out like why someone would say something is really useful. And 2 frameworks I found extremely useful, and they have awesome names, are Hanlons Razor and Occam's Razor. So Hanlons Razor is just a guideline, is a way of thinking, and it says for any given choice of action or thing someone might say, when you're trying to explain why they did it or said it, choose that they were stupid over that they were evil, or that they were naive, or not that they were evil. And then similarly, Occam's Razor says choose any simple explanation for something over a complex explanation. So if you're like, oh hey, my pencil broke, I wonder why that was. It can either be because of physics and you pushed on it too hard, or it could be because a space alien broke it. You should probably choose that physics broke your pencil and not a space alien. And the same thing for like, so for Hanlons Razor, it's like, well, why is iMessage so broken from Apple? Is it because they don't want you to use some other system? Is it, are they trying to lock you in? Is it because they don't want you to send text messages? Or is it just because Apple isn't very good at global scale web services yet? It's probably because they're just not that good at web services yet, because that's kind of new stuff for them. They haven't been doing it for 30 years. So you can apply this to online in your teams. Like, why was this coded this way? This is obviously stupid. It's probably that they didn't know something. So Hanlons Razor, super useful for legacy code systems. It's not that no one wakes up and says, man, I'm going to write some terrible code so that later someone is going to curse my name when they look at the blame. So this one gets me all the time. Right in our modern computer society, we do a lot of communication by reading a bunch of things and then typing a response into a text box. And all that there is, all the context is the words that appeared and maybe some emoji and an avatar that is either the person's face, which is making some kind of neutral face, hopefully, or it's some cartoon that they chose because it portrays their character. So there's all this context that's stripped away. You can't see if they're angry or happy or having a good day or a bad day, or if they love a good rant or if they don't. And so you really have to, and that person on the other side has emotions and feelings and stuff that's going on in their life. So think before you type into a text box. Stop before you send it, even if it's as short as a tweet. Read what you said, read what you wrote, and figure out what you're asking of the other side. Are you asking them to understand that you're making a joke, or that you are, you're like, oh, well, this really annoys me, but only really annoys me in a little way and not like a huge, this is making my life worse problem sort of way. Say what you mean and not what you feel, or separate how you feel and try to separate how you feel and what you think is rational. That helps me a lot lately because I tend to think in terms of what I feel, but if I can step back, I can be like, okay, I feel this thing, but I realize that only these things are rational. So let's try and make these things fit together better. And again, don't confuse social problems for technical problems. Sometimes we'll try and be like, oh, well, we clearly just need more moderation on forums. And that might help, or it might help to just have a niceness policy, or not a niceness policy if that's the kind of community that we're talking about. Having adult supervision and upstarts mixed in a community or a team is really useful. So adult supervision is my term for people who've been around in technology for more than one hype cycle. So anyone who's been doing Rails for more than like 6 or 7 years, anyone who remembers like the Rails can't scale memes and like the ascent of Rails before that, anyone who's done like Java or Visual Basic or whatever, anyone who's been through more than one tech rodeo is sort of adult supervision who says, okay, well, has someone who has history. And then there's upstarts, people who just got into programming 1, 2, 3 years ago. And everyone has been here at some point when they're like, this is new technology and it's way better than this other thing that the olds were using, and it's going to change the world, and I just want to take the bull by the horns and go. You want both of those things because you want the energy and the excitement and the new ideas of the upstarts, but you want the adult supervision to be like, we've done this whole application container thing, and J2EE wasn't that great. or to say, oh, hey, yeah, what you're doing is awesome, this distributed systems is pretty fun. You should look at Lamport clocks because those will help you figure out how to converge state. So you can kind of, you need the calming influence of those not in their first rodeo and the energy of the upstarts. And then the youngs and the olds can learn from each other. So what we've learned, you need to know yourself, know others, and practice empathy. Practice being a more pleasant person. Learn how to think about people and know yourself as a developer, know other developers, and know how to work with them. You can go out and practice this stuff on literally anybody. You can use it on your partner, your mom, your team, your barista, whatever. Get to know people you see every day. I know one of my baristas really well, and it's really awesome to just stand and chat with him for a minute if there's no one behind me in the line. Curate your social network to filter out dumb, angry people. There's no sense in putting up with that, especially if you're like me and you don't like angry conflict. Angry, smart people are kind of a special case, but smart, happy people are super awesome. And yeah. Pat yourself on the back when you succeed or don't say something stupid. I do this. I say like, okay, that previous Adam, 10 years ago Adam, would have said something really mean or asinine or jerky there, and I didn't. So good on me. I've made some progress towards recovering from being a jerk. When I do emerge from some situation, I wish something had gone better, then I take a breath, cool down, maybe go for a walk, go for a run, and then ask myself, okay, next time, what am I going to do better? What am I going to do better? It's not about what the other person did to me or at me or whatever. It's how can I be better every time? So everyone is unique. No one is like you or no one is like me. We can all start the process of working with someone by identifying their character and play to the needs of that person, and we can learn and practice empathy. So I just want to make nicer people and better people on the internet, and I want to head desk less when I work with other people and when I see other people conversating. So we can all be better all the time to everyone we meet, know, work with, or love. And that's it.